The Phillies have made the playoffs. We've talked about it all week. But how did they get here? What has happened all year through 162 games to get us here? The Philadelphia Eagles, Jonathan Gannon versus Kyler Murray. I really want to start talking about the game plan to stop Kyler Murray. And Tyrese Maxey. Is he the number 2 option on this team? Maybe. I don't know. We're going to talk about it. Trending in the AM starts in 30 seconds.
Holding gets around in front.
And Philadelphia has it.
And very good morning, everybody. Welcome to Trending in the AM right here on DSM Media Live, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. You know the drill. Like, share, retweet, follow on all the social media platforms. And do me a special favor. Make sure you head to the DSM Media YouTube page. Watch the show there if you can. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and drop your comments in the comments section. Help us build that algorithm. Help us get to 700. We are 42 subscribers from 700. Get us there, then I can start complaining and begging for you to get us to 800 there. So let's get that going there. I am Phil Stiefel, your host at Bearded Knowledge. We got my main man, Mark Moscatelli, at Mark with a C and a bunch of underscores. Yes, that means this show has been pre-recorded. When you see Mark's pretty face on your computer screen, on your TV screen, that means we are pre-recording. Until next Friday, because he did say next Friday he will be available to come on live. But we are pre-recording this on Wednesday night here, but this is Thursday morning right here. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for waking up with us. Good morning, Mark. Good evening, Mark. How are you today?
Super fantastic, but not as good as you, Phil.
I'm always in a good mood when you see your shiny face on my computer screen. I am
my shiny head.
Yeah, I was going to make the joke, but I'm getting pretty close. One of the light bulbs is out, and I haven't changed it, so it's shining like right here really bad. So if I change the light bulb, it won't shine there as bad. But yeah, hold on. What are we talking first? I don't have my Phillies hat. There we go. We'll hide the bald spot there. You know, it's getting bad, man. Anyway, how are you, Mark? You doing all right?
I'm great. It's a great week for Philly sports, if you ask me. You're coming off a big Eagles win. Mm-hmm. You have the Phillies making the playoffs for the first time in 11 years, and it is a big deal. I don't care what anybody says.
Absolutely.
You have the Sixers starting their preseason, and they're looking really good, especially Maxey, which we'll talk about a little bit more. And then they got the Flyers and whatever the hell is going on over there right now. But yeah, it is a good week of Philly sports, and we're heading into probably one of the most important weekends of Philly sports in a bit because there's a lot going on.
Yeah, there is. And you know what? I want to talk Philly. We're going to talk Eagles. I want to talk Jonathan Gannon, like I said, versus Kyler Murray. I want to talk Sixers, Tyrese Maxey, like you said. And I want to talk the Phillies and how they got to this point, because they have broken an 11-year drought. But I gave Dylan the opportunity on Tuesday morning. I gave Jason on Wednesday morning the opportunity, and I've talked about my opinion on it the last 2 days. So I just want to ask you, Mark, the Philadelphia Phillies, and I don't know if you've caught the last 2 shows, but the Philadelphia Phillies making the playoffs means a lot to a lot of people. It doesn't matter how we got here, like you just said. What does it mean to you that they finally break an 11-year drought and get to the playoffs? Because this may be an Eagles town. This may be a Sixers town when they're hot with Joel Embiid in the process. But let's be honest, the Phillies have been here for a really long damn time. And I know you and I know a lot of people, the Phillies still hold a very special place in our hearts. Growing up in the 80s, going to baseball games with our dads and our brothers and our sisters and whatever. Are you taking your kids there? Mm-hmm. It means a lot to a lot of people. And I would love to know what it means to you that the Phillies have been able to break this drought.
Well, I'm going to say this, Phil. You mentioned about, this is a football town. I disagree. And I've said this on a few shows prior throughout my time with DSM. This is a baseball town first and foremost, that just happens to be dormant right now. I think what really kind of broke it out was when they opened up that new stadium and when they went on the run to go to the playoffs. It coincided with a little bit of a downturn from the Philadelphia Eagles. I gotta be honest with you, it was a baseball town first in that short window. And it can be that again, or at least neck and neck with the Eagles. I think this is the first step. It's weird. I'm surprised that they made the playoffs, but I'm not surprised, if that makes sense. I'm not surprised because I think the team coming out of the gates, I think we all expected them to make a run for the division or a run for one of these wild card spots. There was no reason not. But I am surprised because they've had a lot of turmoil all season. Let's start with Joe Girardi, who was just a complete failure. And, firing your manager mid-season, it's usually a recipe for disaster, and you're ready.
When you do that, you've packed it in already on the
Correct.
season.
Correct.
I mean, and let's back it up even further than Joe Girardi and that firing. I mean, they came out game 1 against the Oakland Athletics and just put up 9 runs on the board, no questions asked.
Mm-hmm.
They won 9-4. They won 3 of their first 4 games. They came out on fire, and then the shoes came off. What they lose, like 8 or 9 games after that to finish the first couple weeks of the season. I mean, it literally started. I remember betting. I've never bet baseball in my life. I bet the over in game 1, and they scored 9 runs right out of the bat.
Because we talked about this lineup was going to be a lot of 10-9 games.
Yeah, exactly. And then it just completely fell apart.
The team didn't have really a lot of life, a lot of energy during the first 50, 60 plus games. I think he coached 60 games in it. And
he was 21 and 29, so he coached 50. He coached 50 games.
He coached 50 games. And after he was fired, they went on a run. And it breathed some life back into the team. And it talks about the culture, at least the culture that he cultivated there. It didn't work until he was taken out of the equation. And the younger players started playing. They started playing a little bit looser. They started winning some games. They went on a nice run. Rob Thompson really kind of let them do their thing. But you can also, when I say like I'm surprised that they made it, because during that course, the best player one of the best players in all of baseball right now went down with an injury. For a long time, and you fire your manager. Your MVP from the previous season is now hurt for most of the season when he was already nursing an arm injury where he can't play the outfield, which means you had to shift your lineup that you weren't expecting. Like, those are all things, like, you check those boxes off and you're like, yeah, this is a 75 win team. And they persevered through that. And I don't think the team, I don't think Dombrowski, I don't think Middleton, I don't think Rob Thompson and the coaching staff, I don't think they get enough credit for that. There's a lot of disdain for the Phillies right now because of the price tag of their players and their performance. But honestly, anywhere else, either in this league or at a different time here in our organization, this is a 70, 75 win team. And they should have packed it in a long time ago, and they never did.
So can I think about this? This just popped into my head right now. Philadelphia as a whole, it's a blue-collar, hardworking city. You want to say what you want to say about the politics right now or the crime in the city, whatever. I mean, that's separate. But Philadelphia has always been known as a blue-collar, hardworking city. And the fans that make up this city for all the teams, the Phillies, Flyers, Sixers, whatever, the Eagles, they're blue-collar fans. They want to see effort, and they want to see hustle. And because of that price tag and the lack of results, the fan base wasn't really connecting with this team, between the manager, the GM, the owner, and just the way it was going. But should the city have connected more Because let's be honest, everything you just said about everything that went wrong, for them to pull out, I predicted 88 wins. You predicted 92. They lost on Wednesday night. They finished the season 87 and 65.
75. 87, 75.
75. So we were both pretty close there. A team with as much adversity as they've faced, as much criticism. I'm no saint. I've criticized Rob Thompson since day one. We just spent Wednesday talking with me and Jason on the show, talking about, have I been too harsh and should Rob Thompson get manager of the year considerations for what he's done? But should we have connected more with this team? Because with all the adversity they faced, they were still able to pull out 87 wins. They were still able to break an 11-year playoff drought. That does say something about this team. The fight and the culture that has been developed since Rob Thompson has taken over.
There are still flaws with this team. I think they still lack an identity. They don't have, and we've talked about this in previous shows. They really lack a clubhouse leader a la Darren Dalton, Jimmy Rollins, guys like that, guys that are real like spark plugs, guys that are not afraid to speak their mind, guys that are really true leaders. Look at the team and the roster that you have. Who really is a leader on this team?
Well, it's interesting because I brought this up on Wednesday morning with Jason, the same exact topic about the leadership aspect of this team. That my problem with Rob Thompson really comes down to we don't have a leader, and if you don't have a leader in the clubhouse, you need your manager to be more of a fiery leader. You look at Charlie Manuel. Charlie Manuel had Jimmy Rollins. He had Chase Utley. Jim Fergosi had Darren Dalton. He had Lenny Dykstra and John Kruk, who could carry the team and lead the team. Rob Thompson doesn't have one of those guys, so that's why he needs to step up more. But the other thing I said, and Jason tried to say to me, well, that means that in this offseason, the Phillies got to go out and get a leader to add to this team. But then my counter to that, Mark, was that normally the leader of the team is somebody that's already been there. A free agent coming in here isn't going to be the instant leader of a team. You can't go out and sign Trey Turner this offseason, expect him to come in and lead this clubhouse. That's just not the way it works. We have talked on previous shows about how we thought Kyle Schwarber was trying to develop into that. But again, to my point that you can't just bring someone in, he was the new face this year. So maybe it was hard for him to be the leader. Now, maybe going into next season, after he could spend the whole offseason with Bryson Stott and Alec Boehm and, Rangers, maybe he can build that rapport even more. Because I think a lot of the leadership, you look at Jalen Hurts with the Eagles or, Joel Embiid or James Harden, they do a lot of their leadership and team building in the offseason. And maybe this offseason, Kyle Schwarber is able to grow or build that leadership because I think he's got the personality for it. I think he draws respect, but maybe being the new guy on the block this past year just wasn't the case for him. Does that make sense?
It does. And I thought that he was really going to take over after that Brewers game where he just blew a fucking gasket.
And that's when I thought Rob Thompson should have gotten fired. That was when Joe Girardi should have gotten fired because Joe Girardi did nothing in that moment. So
Kyle did what the manager should have been doing.
Absolutely.
And that showed me like this guy's got that moxie to be that clubhouse leader that's needed, but he had only been with the team for a short time. Now he's been there a whole season.
And people forget, he wasn't signed till after the lockout. It was like the day camp was starting or maybe a couple days into training camp when he was signed. So It wasn't even like he was with the team from the get-go. He was a late arrival.
And listen, he has a pedigree. He won a ring with the Cubs, an organization that had gone over 100 years without winning a ring. So he's got some – He could flex his muscle in that locker room and said, listen, guys, I've been there. I was on a team like this. You guys need to do more. Yeah. And, I'd like, as much as I like Bryce Harper, he is immensely talented. He could sleepwalk through a season and hit 300 with 35 homers and 100 RBIs. Mm-hmm. And he does connect with the fans and makes the fans feel good about him. but what is he doing he'll lead, I think, on the field with his big home runs and big hits, but like behind closed doors, like what really happens? Who is the guy there that is
two
really
kinds of leaders? And you look at the
exactly?
'93 team and the '08 team. '93 team, you had three leaders. You had Darren Dalton, you had John Kruk, and you had Lenny Dykstra. All three were different types of players and different types of leaders. Lenny Dykstra wasn't a leader, but he was a leader because Lenny Dykstra would go and punch you in the face if you screwed up on the field. You know, Chase Utley, Jimmy Rollins would do what they do. Ryan Howard wasn't Ryan Howard wasn't that Darren Dalton type leader, but he was probably more like the Bryce Harper type, where he did
Correct.
it on the field. You know what I mean? He would go to management if he had to and say, "Yo, we need to go get a pitcher," or something like that. But he wasn't that locker room leader. He could still lead on the field, but not behind the scenes when the going gets tough. He's not calling the player meeting to get it going. John Kruk wasn't the fiery leader, but he was the one that, you Lenny Dykstra would punch you in the face. You didn't want to ever disappoint Darren Dalton. John Kruk was kind of that intermediate leader. He'd pull you aside. This is why you got punched, or this is why Dalton is, disappointed in you. You can have different kinds of leaders, but you still need to have that vocal clubhouse leader like a Darren Dalton or a Jimmy Rollins. And I think Kyle Schwarber can be that. It's just like I said, maybe going into whatever happens this playoff run, going into this next season, which there's going to be a lot of change unless we win a World Series, which who knows, whatever. October, anything can happen. But there's going to be a lot of changes on this team. And he's going to be somebody that'll still be here, Kyle Schwarber. So he has the opportunity to step up and take that leadership role. And he could start that right now with the playoffs, having that playoff and World Series pedigree.
Yeah, and you said something that's really sticking out, that the lateness of him signing,
Right.
having the lockout, having a truncated spring training. We had all these new players that we signed. The chemistry probably wasn't there in the beginning of the season. The chemistry might still not, be there. I'm not sure.
Look, there were people calling for Joe Girardi, me included, to not even start the season with this team. There were people that were calling for his head last year. And I kind of feel like some of the early chemistry issues were because there were people. I'm not saying Bryce Harper didn't want Joe Girardi here, but there were people in that locker room that did not think Joe Girardi should be their coach. And when you have a manager that's already checked out, because we talked about it on shows where you take on the personality of your leader, and Joe Girardi looked like he didn't want to be there from day one.
Mm-hmm.
Almost like he wanted to be fired. And he wasn't fired. So that might have been a part of the problem where a lot of these players were down on themselves and this team right from the get-go because of the leadership from the top.
Leadership is so important, whether you run a business or you're a coach of a baseball team or a football team, or you're in the classroom and working on a group project. Leadership is just, it transcends everything. And if you don't have leaders, like, you're going to be rudderless and you're never going to be able to accomplish the goal that you want. And I do think that this team really lacks leadership, real leadership. And it's got to come from one or two places. Either somebody takes control of that locker room and really kind of bangs the drum on really needs to be done to be winners, or somebody forces that who's on the team, Bryce, to take a more of a leadership role. And I hearken back to the 80 team. That team in 76, 77, and 78, they couldn't get over the hump.
I know
they couldn't get over the hump.
I know where you're going with this one.
And they signed Pete Rose. And Pete Rose was that catalyst that made everybody else on that team better. And it took the heat off of their best player, Mike Schmidt, who is a guy that did it on the field. But if you've ever read anything about him as a player, like he was soft-spoken. He was an introvert. He just didn't have it to be what was needed to get them over the top. Pete Rose did, and that was it was one of the greatest free agent signings in Philadelphia history, if not maybe top three, maybe top two.
We'll do an off-season show on that. You got him. Moses Malone was a free agent signing, correct?
think he
did not
might have been a trade.
It was an off-season move, though.
It was. It was
wasn't
something
like
that
a
they
trade
needed.
deadline move. So it was Moses Malone, Pete Rose. They, in my opinion, probably are the two biggest moves right there. Maybe Terrell Owens.
Terrell Owens
might get up there to the top 3 or 4 there. Pete Rose might be the number 1 off-season move, though.
Yeah, but that's what again.
But see what you're saying though is you had to win that title in '80. You had multiple different types of leaders. You had the on-field leader, Mike Schmidt. You had the clubhouse leader in Pete Rose. In '93, you had the on-the-field leaders, and then you had Darren Dalton. In 2008, you had Rollins, Utley, and Howard. 3 different kinds of leaders. Right now, we have Bryce Harper, who is kind of a leader on the field with his hustle and his play, but there's nobody in that locker room that's holding. Do you think Reese Hoskins or let's just throw random names, Nick Castellanos are going to be scared of Bryce Harper yelling at them in the locker room? No, because he's not that kind of player.
No, Bryce Harper is a rah-rah cheerleader type of guy.
Right.
They need somebody grab the bull by the horns type of guy. And like I said, I don't know if there's anybody on the team that could do that. Again, maybe
you can't bring in Trey Turner in the offseason and expect him to be that guy. You can't make a trade in the offseason for somebody.
No, you can't. I just really wish somebody would. I wish somebody would really step up. Somebody like JT Realmuto as a catcher. As a catcher, you're basically you're running that whole.
You're the quarterback of the team.
You're the quarterback in the team. God, if I heard JT Realmuto's voice, I wouldn't recognize it because he doesn't really.
I won't lie. He can walk into my pizza shop and I might not recognize him.
Yeah, and that's part of the problem. That's part of the problem. They have talent. There's plenty of talent on this team. They don't have those intangibles that could push the team over the hump. Now, I'm really curious to see how they're going to perform against the Cardinals. I know
3 days, and it's 3 days in a row, right? It's Monday, it's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. They play back to back those 3 games.
Yes,
this is an opportunity.
It's like a weekend series, is basically what it is.
This is an opportunity for Kyle Schwarber or JT Realmuto or Bryce Harper to step up and grab that leadership by the horns, and become that vocal leader. Because let's be honest, there is an opportunity. The matchup does play, considering all the different matchups they could have had in this divisional round, this wild card round. It does play in their favor. They can beat the Cardinals.
They absolutely can beat the Cardinals. They are on par with that team. They can beat them. And listen, I'm the type of guy, and people will say, no, you can't do that. No, that's stupid. No, it doesn't mean anything to these guys. But if I were the Phillies, if I was John Middleton, I would fly in Rollins and Howard and Utley and some of the other guys that were on that 2011 team that
lost to the Cardinals.
That lost to the Cardinals and say, man,
before like 4:00 today, it wasn't even connecting that the last time we were in the playoffs, the Cardinals beat us, and then our first time back is like literally it was 4:00 on Wednesday when I realized it. Like it totally slipped my mind.
And I think if you go in there closed door, somebody like Rollins who's been floating around the team all season,
I'm gonna say him specifically.
Yeah, and he comes in and tells them how much this series means to the organization and what they need to do. And again, people say, well, you don't do that. You don't have to do that. I think you do. I really think you do.
There's been times Kobe Bryant is brought into the Eagles locker room in the past. You bring outside influences into locker rooms to fire up the troops. Bringing Jimmy Rollins, he would be the specific. I wouldn't bring him all in. I would bring in Jimmy Rollins because he has been with the team. He's called games. He's a special assistant in the front office. There's talk that maybe he's a manager someday in this organization or another. He's got that fiery leader. You get Jimmy Rollins to go into that locker room before game 1 or go to batting practice and before everything happens and talk to these guys. Or, hell, when they go to board the plane to head off to St. Louis, have him there on the plane. I think it could help.
I do. And, let's be real, man.
You actually just created like a total off-the-topic subject for me. I got to interrupt you. You
What's
know
that?
I don't love Rob Thompson. You know I don't think he's a lock to return or shouldn't be a lock to return. Now, I have in the last 2 days said, because of my hype and fun and how excited I am that they're in the playoffs, said that he probably has earned at least one more year. How would you feel if the Phillies give Rob Thompson a 2-year extension after whether they lose in 2 games or they make a deep run? They give him a 2-year extension so he's not a lame duck coach, and he's forced to bring Jimmy Rollins in as one of his bench coaches. So that if he fails, you've got Jimmy Rollins to slide. There's a lot of talk that Jimmy Rollins wants to be a coach and that he would be a good coach. How would you feel? And he's going to be one of the coaches on the American World Baseball Classic team. How would you feel about Jimmy Rollins being on the bench, even in an assistant role with the Philadelphia Phillies?
If I was Rob Thompson, I would then turn down the contract offer and be a free agent manager. Because so let's be honest with you, you're a couple mistakes away from losing your job and Jimmy taking your job. So why would you have that guy?
Where the fans are chanting for the backup quarterback.
Yeah,
when one thing goes wrong.
And then for me, and I've said this again on a couple shows, and I've told a couple friends and on Twitter, hey, Jimmy Rollins should be the next manager of the team. And I said, this guy is not the manager type. I think this guy could be a GM. I think he could be a team president. I think he has grander.
He's the next Derek Jeter, basically, is what you're saying.
Yeah, but I think he would do it better than Jeter. I really do. I don't want to see him become a manager. Usually, star players, Hall of Fame, borderline Hall of Fame, they just don't. They don't relate as well as somebody who was a backup or like a career minor leaguer.
Me and Jason had this conversation a couple shows ago that leaders, you look at it in all sports, very few head coaches or managers in any of the major sports were great coaches. The great coaches were backups. Joe Girardi, look, he failed here in Philadelphia, but he does have a World Series ring as a manager and as a player. But, he was a backup. A lot of the quarterbacks that become coaches, the ones that are successful, Doug Peterson, backup head coach or backup quarterback, great head coach. But you didn't see any starting quarterbacks in the Hall of Fame be major head coaches. Doc Rivers was a good player. He wasn't a Hall of Fame player. Mike Scioscia was an okay player in baseball, wasn't a great player. So it really, I can think of one guy that was a great player that had success as a coach, and that's Frank Robinson. He was great. What do you have, like 550, 600 home runs?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I don't know if he won a World Series. I know he coached in a World Series. I don't know if he ever won a World Series, but he was a really, really strong head manager in baseball.
Well, I mean, there are a couple outliers there. I mean, Larry Bird had a pretty good run as a head coach.
I mean, more than most. Okay.
Yeah. If you want to go all the way back, Bill Russell was a Hall of Famer.
That's an outlier, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, and that was a different time. But your players who become coaches are typically those that rode the bench in baseball. A lot of catchers starting and backup because, again, they see the whole field. They manage the whole game. It's a really good transition.
I've been waiting for Todd Pratt to become a manager.
Todd
Pratt or Sal Fasano to be a manager because, great backup catchers in our history.
Like honestly, like a guy like, I mean, God rest his soul, somebody like Darren Dalton would have been a fantastic manager if he wanted to do it.
Never wanted to do it though.
Yeah, he would have been fantastic. But like for Thompson, I would not accept having Rollins on my staff.
What you're saying is right, and it makes sense. But the thought had just literally randomly. I literally thought of it 30 seconds before I said it.
Honestly, the Phillies are going to be forced in a corner if they do make a run in the playoffs. They have no choice but to extend this guy.
Exactly.
And I know this is not Dombrowski's guy. Neither was Girardi. He's itching to put his own guy in there, and he's probably really hoping that we get swept this weekend, so it makes it all the more easier.
Good segue. I do have a poll on the DSM Media YouTube page. I would love everybody to head on over there, hit subscribe, obviously, when you're there, and And if you click the community tab, there's a poll. How will the Phillies fare this weekend? Will they win 2-0? Will they lose 2-0? Will they win 2-1 out of 3 and win it in 3? Or will they lose in 3 games? Make sure you go over there and head over there and vote. I'd greatly love to get that poll up to 50, 100 votes and see how many people really feel about this and all. Sorry. Had to do a little plug there.
I'll go on that after our show today. I'm going to go ahead and do that poll. I didn't see it.
We were 30 minutes and we didn't even get to the Phillies topic I wanted to cover. So let's do it a little quicker. Look, we did win 87 games at the bleakest of times and the highest of times. How did we get here? If you had to name 3 Phillies, why that 3 Phillies that impressed you that you weren't expecting or exceeded your expectations, what would be your 3 Phillies that exceeded your expectations over? Because let's be honest, baseball is different than any other sport. It's 162 games. Everything averages out. You know what I mean? There's not 17 games and, it could have been a fluke season or something like that. It's 162 games. You are what you are, but you can learn a lot about a team in 162 games. Who impressed you or exceeded your expectations the most this season?
All right, 3 players.
I'm giving you 3 players since we spent 30 minutes not talking the topic that I wanted to talk about.
In no particular order.
Yeah, no particular order.
I'd say Kyle Schwarber, because he was leading off the whole season and was still almost able to hit 50 home runs.
Right.
And his batting average for the longest time, he was batting under 200. He was in the 180s. He brought it up to I think he ended at 219. That's pretty impressive. Now, I think he was miscast as a leadoff.
218, 323 on base percentage, 504 slugging, and 46 home runs, 94 RBIs. He did say he was the first Philly to strike out 200 times, 3 triples, 21 doubles, and he had some steals too. He had 10 steals too. It's kind of surprising, 10 steals from Kyle Schwarber.
Yeah, and he wasn't terrible in left field. I mean, he serviceable. I would say is a good description. But I was quite surprised that
he made it 1 error all year.
1 error. Oh, there you go.
He did lead the team in the worst at defensive wins, the defensive WAR. Defensive win above replacement. He was a -2. He was worst on the team.
Yeah, I would think
he didn't have 1 error. He really didn't save a lot of runs. So yeah.
Yeah. So still, I was surprised of his output in the leadoff. Like I said, he's miscast. They need to figure something out next year. He's got to bat lower in the lineup, 5th, 6th, something like that. So those home runs knock in some more. I mean, he should have. With 40 some odd home runs, 46 home runs, he should have had like 120 RBIs minimum. Agreed. So I think we've left some folks on base there. The second player that has really surprised me, especially because of his start, it was Bryson Stott. Again, that guy was batting like 130 for a good portion of the year, and he ended, I think, at 235. He swung a little bit of a hot bat, a little bit of pop here or there, couple clutch hits. I mean, he had a huge home run in the clincher the other night. I think he's somebody to watch. I brought
it up before that he's a potential leadoff hitter, in my opinion. So he ended up at 234, which when he got demoted early in the season, his batting average was under 150. His on base and slugging, his OPS was under 300 at one point, and he finished the season at 653. 10 home runs, 49 RBIs. 10 home runs, 49 where's the steals? 12 steals, 19 doubles, a couple triples. Dude, you're spot on with Bryson Stott. Bryson Stott, to me, benefited the most from the managerial change, which gave him an everyday shot at shortstop.
Yeah, I mean, he can honestly, in either second base or shortstop, he could be there for 10 years, whichever one that they choose to play him at. Obviously, if they sign Trey Turner, they're going to shift him to second and let Gene Segura walk, which I don't have a problem with. And the third player is Ranger Suarez. I think he was a big of a question mark coming in, and Bill James did say he was like he's going to be one of the top 5 pitchers in the league. Now he wasn't that, but think he had some really nice gems throughout the season. He pitched very well all season. And now again, the other night he probably had a massive hangover and got lit up pretty good in the first inning there. But he is the future. He's going to be part of the future of this team. So those three players are probably off the top of my head that they were a bit of a surprise for us.
3.65 ERA from Ranger Suarez over 155 innings. He struck out. Where's his numbers? I'm trying to go across the board here. 129 guys. He walked 58. That's got to come down just a touch next year. His whip's a little high. He did struggle at times getting through. He wasn't Vince Velasquez bad, but he did struggle putting guys away occasionally. But he's young. This was his first year. People forget. Last year he was a reliever. He didn't start till the end of he had 10 or 11 starts last year, and that was it. He was a relief pitcher. This was his first year as a reliever or a starter, and this is the most innings he's ever pitched in his life. So I think you're spot on with your three. I'm going to throw some other names at you for all different kinds of reasons. The number one name, Bryson Stott, if you didn't say, he would have been number one for me. That surprised me. And I think, like I said, him benefiting from being an everyday player after Joe Girardi got fired benefited him massively. Alec Bohm. We could talk about his hitting. He was around 290 most of the year. He finished. I got to switch back to averages and off of the pitchers here. Hold on a second. Alec Bohm finished at 280, and he had a 713 slugging or on base plus slugging percentage. Drove in 72 runs, which is pretty good considering he struggled at the start of the year. But the thing that impressed me the most, so I talked about Kyle Schwarber's the worst defensive WAR guy on this team. Alec Bohm was second. He was minus 1.4 defensive runs saved. But if I told you over or under 13 and a half errors were committed this year by Alec Bohm, what would you, without looking at stats, what would you initially think was the over-under on 13 and a half?
I would take over.
Right, exactly. Considering he had 3 errors in one inning of a game early in the season, right?
Mm-hmm.
He committed only 13 errors this year. I think that's pretty damn successful.
Still
a guy that people were not. No, 13 errors is a lot. Don't get me wrong. In 150, he played 152 games. 13 errors from your third baseman is a lot.
That's one every 10 games. Yeah.
But we've had third basemen that have committed 20-plus errors before here in Philadelphia. And the fact that he committed 3 of them in one inning of one game, and the world was falling. He's a young kid with a team without a leader of Joe Girardi was failing at that time. He said, I effing hate this place. The world could have collapsed around Alec Bohm and his career in Philadelphia. And what did he do? He buckled down, and even though he wasn't hitting at that moment, he worked on his defense. Look, his throwing motion is better. His glove, he doesn't have the range, full range that you would like out of a third baseman, and that's why his defensive WAR is not very good. But he's only committed 10 errors the rest of the year. I think the ability that he was able to have to fix that and actually improve offensively, I still think Alec Bohm could hit 20 home runs in a season. I still think Alec Bohm could drive in 90 runs a season. And I still think Alec Bohm could hit 300 in a season. And if he could keep his errors in that 10 to 12 error range, I am super impressed with how Alec Bohm performed this year.
I agree. And you know, from a third baseman, I think he's a third baseman trapped in a first baseman's body. I think he's more geared to. I think he wants to play first base. I think the team wants him to play first base, but they have Rhys Hoskins at first. So
right.
And they can't put Rhys anywhere else.
Yeah, Rhys Hoskins may not be here next year, and that would solve that problem, and that would be fine. But there's a scenario where Rhys Hoskins is still here next year because he's still got 1 year left of arbitration eligibility, so we still control his rights next year. I would not if you go tell me that we're going to upgrade Gene Segura to Trey Turner, and our infield next year is Alec Bohm at third, Trey Turner at short, Stott at second, Rhys Hoskins at first. I'm okay with that. Rhys Hoskins committed 12 errors at first base. Alec Bohm 13 at third as a 25-year-old. I'll take that if my first baseman's committing 12 errors. You know what I mean? Like comparing the two, you know, I think that's acceptable at this point of his career. So I got more names. Bailey Falter. I want to go Bailey Falter here on you. You said Rangers Suarez. There was a point in this year when Zach Wheeler was down, when we had injuries going across this team. Zach Eflin went down. We were constantly with the bullpen / I call them quadruple A. Guys that pitch well in AAA but aren't good enough for the majors. We kept going Falter, Sanchez, whatever. We called up Bailey Falter so many times this year that he had to stay up on the team or he had to be cut from the 40-man roster because we used up all of his options this year. The second half of this year, late in this year, we may have found our number 5 starter in our rotation for next year. Once he got consistent confidence that he was going to be a starter when he was called up, and they let him go 5, 6, 7 innings, he pitched pretty damn well. Considering did anybody even know who Bailey Falter was before this season? The average fan did not.
No, I know him as the spot starter. That he had a role. He understood his role, and he did his role very well. And it should earn him a look to be the 5th starter next season, Phil. I do agree with you there. I think he was a great asset to the team. And I hope nothing but the best for him. Hopefully we do see him take the next step in his career next year.
All right, and I'm going to give you the one disappointment this year, and that's the big ticket item, and that's Nick Castellanos. And I don't care that he only hit 13 home runs, because honestly, I saw him as a 20, 22 home run. Like I saw last year's 30-plus home runs as an aberration with Cincinnati, but the guy's hit 40 to 50 doubles every single season in his career, and he hit 27 doubles this year. He hit 260-plus. Nick Castellanos, as the big ticket item, he comes to Philly, the airport, Mr. John Clark, Johnny on the spot, gets him at the airport. And he says, I didn't go to college. I'm here. I learned how to hit baseballs, whatever the quote was. I was massively disappointed in what we got from Nick Castellanos. I didn't expect him to be the leader. I didn't expect him to hit 35 home runs and driving 120 RBIs. But I expected better than 260 and 13 home runs and 27 doubles. Is there any concern that we may have overpaid for Nick Castellanos and he might be a problem going forward?
No, I don't think he's going to be a problem. I am disappointed in his output this year. I am disappointed on his demeanor and attitude. But I do believe that the start of the season had a lot to do with it. The changing the coaches, the lack of spring training, the lack of the ability to create any type of chemistry. Now that they have a season under their belt and they kind of know what their roles are on the team, year 2, I'm expecting a hell of a lot better from Nick.
And also playing left, being forced to play right field every single day.
Again, that was the other thing too, Phil. He was supposed to be the DH, and I think that had a lot to do with it.
There's a chance he's going to be forced to play right field again next year because Bryce Harper never had the surgery. Bryce Harper's going to rehab again this offseason, and if it doesn't go well, I don't know about you, but I remember Cliff Lee and his UCL tear, and he tried to rehab it. He was never the same again. So Bryce Harper
we're talking about a pitcher and an outfielder. It's
right.
The two
we're
little
about an outfielder that's known for having a great arm and stuff like. I mean, unless you're going to move Bryce Harper to left field and Kyle Schwarber to right field, I mean, you're kind of stuck there, in my opinion. I don't know. It could be a problem. Look, I want to wrap up the Phillies talk because we're already 45. This is going to be way more than an hour-long show. We haven't touched on the Eagles. We haven't touched on the Sixers yet. I don't get Mark's time very often, so we are going to run this show until it stops. But I won't give my predictions till Friday morning on the Friday morning show, which is going to be a longer show as well. So I already said we're going live at 8:15 a.m. instead of 8:30 a.m. on Friday because we got Phillies to predict and talk about Phillies versus Cardinals, and then we've got Eagles Cardinals. We got Cardinals all weekend. It doesn't matter what team we're playing, what sport we're talking about. It's just the Cardinals. Is there a basketball team that named the Cardinals that I don't know about? I don't know. What is your prediction, Mark, for how this weekend goes against the St. Louis Cardinals?
I don't like the fact that they're playing on the road. I don't like the fact that this is the last hurrah for Pujols, Molina, and Wainwright. I want the Phillies to play spoilers for them. I don't know if they have it in them to win a 3-game series on the road. I'd like to, if they do, it's going all 3, and it's going to probably be a late outcome, may even be an extra inning game in Game 3. All hands on deck, where you have to use just about every arm that you have, and it's going to, if they do win, it's going to totally screw up the rotation in the division series. I'm going to go Cardinals in 3. I don't think the Phillies got enough to overcome them. I think they spent a lot to get to the position where they were at. So I don't think that they've down the stretch, they really haven't impressed me, the Phillies. When it was, they could have put this away a long time ago, and they really struggled to do that. And they almost, I'm not going to say they backdoor into the playoffs, but they kind of did.
I know everybody wants to see Rangers Suarez in Game 3. I'd love to get your opinion. Just say, hypothetically speaking, we lose in Game 1. Just say Zach Wheeler pitches well, but whoever goes for the Cardinals, whether it's Adam Wainwright or whoever, we lose, say 2-1, 3-1, whatever. Game 2 comes along. Aaron Nola's pitch count's up there a little bit. It's a close game. He has to come out of the game in the 5th inning, say. You got Alvarado. You got Zach Eflin. You don't have many options. Is Ranger Suarez an option to pitch out of the bullpen in Game 3? Because it is do or die, and you want your best player out there. You can't have confidence in a Nick Nelson, or you can't have confidence in whoever else is out there. Right now, you have Zach Eflin and Jose Alvarado. They're the only 2 guys that you can have 100% confidence in. Would you be okay of sacrificing Ranger Suarez in Game 2 for 1 inning, if necessary, or even 1/3 of an inning to get a left-handed hitter out? If it then means that Game 4 or Game 3 you do come back and win, or that saves Game 2 in your season, then you got to go Bailey Falter or Noah Syndergaard or whoever in Game 3.
I would say if it's a close game and they're losing, I think it's all hands on deck to stop the bleeding. I think all weekend it's got to be all hands on deck. Everybody has got to. I think you're going to. I mean, if you get to the point where you got to pitch somebody on no days rest, I think you got to do it. Sorry, man. I mean, it's a 3-game series.
Baseball sudden death to me is one of the most amazing things in all of sports, and I love it because it is all. Now, all teams don't manage their squads like that, but I love the all hands on deck. I remember one of the Arizona Diamondbacks series back when they had Schilling and Randy Johnson. It was a Game 7, and both guys on short rest went in Game 7 or Game 6, whatever it was. It was a sudden death game for the Diamondbacks, and you had one start, go 3 innings on short rest, and the next 2 innings by the other guy. It's all hands on deck when it's sudden death in baseball. And you don't worry about the next game. You worry about the current game and then figure it out. We got to pause really quickly. We got to pay a quick bill here. Today's show is brought to you by Gents Barber Lounge. Check out one of the 2 great locations in Fishtown and Old City and book your appointment today. They own the craft, gents, and it shows. Rated the #1 barbershop on Yelp in the Philadelphia area. Multiple award-winning barbers and able to handle any style of cut, adult or child. Here, check this video out real quick, and we'll be right back. Again, that was Gents Barber Lounge there in Philadelphia. Make sure you check them out. All right, Mark, I don't know if you noticed. Did you see something different here? I changed my hat.
Change up the hats.
Yeah. All right. We talked Phillies for 48 minutes when I planned on spending 20 minutes on each team. And we went 48 minutes. We're not going to go 48 minutes on the Eagles, and we're not going to go 48 minutes on the Sixers. That would be the longest show in the history of DSM Media. But let's talk Eagles, and then we'll get into the Sixers here. Eagles also play the Cardinals this weekend, 4:25 in Arizona. Look, we haven't talked on a show in a while. The Eagles exceeding expectations already at this point. The Cardinals, on paper, are the toughest team that they faced. The Eagles are not getting the respect they deserve. It comes down to me one thing this week. There's one key to victory, not 3, not 5, one key to victory. and that's stopping Kyler Murray. But the Eagles, at least on the other end of the equation, have Jalen Hurts that they face every single week in practice, who is a very similar quarterback to Kyler Murray. The only difference between Kyler Murray and Jalen Hurts is Jalen Hurts has a great connection with his team and his coach. Kyler Murray seems to hate Cliff Kingsbury, which is a problem right there. And he's missing his number one weapon in DeAndre Hopkins still. So the question to talk Eagles to start this week, because today, Thursday, tomorrow, Friday, we're going to talk a lot of Eagles and how they win this week and go to 5-0. How do you stop Kyler Murray? Mark, you're Jonathan Gannon. You put your coach's hat on. How do you stop Kyler Murray this week?
I think you have to. I'm not even going to say you have to have a pass rush on him. I think you have to contain him and keep him in the pocket. Make him try to beat you in the pocket. Don't get him rolling out. Don't get him moving. Keeping those big guys up in front of him. Let's be honest, the dude is short. I mean, you could say what you want. You got a 6'5" guy that's in his face. I don't care how big you are, how small you are. But like if he's in your face, you can't physically evade something like that and be accurate all day long. So I think they have to contain him in the pocket. Not so much pass rush and sack him, because if you're going to pressure him, he's going to jot out left or right. And that's where he's going to make a lot of moves and make some plays, either with his legs or with his arm. Find a way to keep him in the pocket and beat him as a traditional passer. I don't think he'll be able to do it. He's probably going to look for Zach Ertz underneath a lot. Zach is having a pretty decent year. I think he's got like 25 catches so far this season.
I've got the stats of the Cardinals up here. He's got 22 catches on 181 yards, 2 touchdowns. Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown, 30 catches on 339 yards, 2 touchdowns. And Greg Dortch, no idea who he is. He's got 21 catches, 204 yards. That's their offense passing wise. So my thing is so I'm thinking about the Eagles and how they've run their defense so far. They lead. I think they lead the league now in sacks. I think they've got 19 sacks on the season, even though they had I think 0 in week 1. I want to see Hassan Reddick, Brandon Graham, Josh Sweat crashing the corners, keeping the pocket contained. And I worry, so you need Kazir White to cover Zach Ertz. TJ Edwards is not quite as fast as Kazir White. Do you run the typical defensive strategy when you're going up against a very mobile quarterback is to have a spy? Do you want TJ Edwards, though, as the spy? Do you bring Chauncey Gardner-Johnson up into the box on a regular basis? He's had a quiet season. He hasn't had a bad season since he's come here. He maybe hasn't lived up to the hype of when he got traded here. Do you have him come up in the box and spy? Do you have Marcus Epps do that? Do you want a spy? Do you need a spy in this with this defense and the way they're able to get pressure with just 4 or 5 guys? Do you even need that spy in the box?
I don't think you can afford having a spy. With Maddox is probably going to be out again. Slay is banged up. I'm not sure. It has an injury report come out on him.
I'm going to give you the details who practiced on Wednesday. Darius Slay did practice in full, just so you know.
Okay.
Maddox, hold on, give me a second here. I'm going to bring it up. I know exactly who tweeted this out today. Give me 1 second. Joe Castro, Philly, my man. I love Joe Castro. All right, so did not practice at all today. Jake Elliott was completely out, ankle. Kyron and Patrick Johnson both were out with concussion. Avonte Maddox and Jordan Mailata both out completely. Boston Scott and Isaac Seumalo practiced on Wednesday in a limited fashion, and Darius Slay was a 100% full participant in practice. So you will have Slay, you will have Bradbury, then you'll have the makeshift slot corner, whoever it may be, but you should have Slay on Sunday.
I still wouldn't have a defensive back or safety spying Murray.
So do you trust TJ Edwards on Zach Ertz? He's had a great season.
He's keeping Nakobe Dean off the field right now.
On a side note, have you ever thought in the last 10 years the words "we have an excess at linebacker" ever be said? And we do right now.
It's amazing because it's been a neglected position for 20 years.
fantastic.
Yeah. So and we're in a great spot right now for our defense, and I'm quite surprised on how they're performing. And we talked about this. Give Gannon the players, and then it's up to him to come up with the scheme that works. And he's done it the past 4 weeks. He's really kind of figured things out. And
we've all criticized Jonathan Gannon at some point. I even criticized him after the Minnesota Vikings win, saying that I saw moments in the game. I think me and you talked about this on the show. I saw moments in the game that could have swayed the momentum in the other direction. But let's be honest. Jonathan Gannon has figured it out. He made adjustments since week 1. I mean, we have given up only 71 points in 4 games. And how many points did we give up against Detroit? 31?
35? 31?
35? Whatever it is. We've given up less than 40 points in the last 3 weeks against some, on paper, really good offenses. But I still just don't look. You got to stop Kyler Murray. You got to keep him in the box. You got to keep him from running the football. Which I don't know if you'd be surprised to hear this number or not. He's only got 91 rushing yards through 4 games, and he's got 2 touchdowns. Okay, so his touchdowns are a little higher than I thought. But he's only averaging 3.8 rushes a game. He's only got 91 rushes. Their rushing attack is bare minimum. James Conner, their leading rusher, their starting running back, I mean, he's washed at this point. They have no running attack whatsoever. You need to keep him in the box, and you got to control Marquise Brown and Zach Ertz. That's it on offense. And if you do that, you win. I'm just not sure who I want. I hate the word spy, but it's your 4 down linemen, Reddick, Graham, Cox, whoever's down, and then you got to have one other guy there, whether it's Edwards or whether it's Kaseer White. But I just worry about Zach Ertz. We've beaten Deuce Staley week 1. We beat somebody who was our Eagles connection to week 2 in Minnesota. Oh, Jalen Reagor. Week 3, we beat Carson Wentz. Week 4, we beat. I'm drawing a blank now here. Week 4, who did we beat last week?
Doug Peterson.
Doug Peterson, duh. Dude, it's late, man. I've been up since 7 a.m. today, all right? Doug Peterson. This week, we got to beat Zach Ertz.
Yeah.
Will Zach Ertz, I really do worry about just 3 people. And I have to have confidence in Jonathan Gannon to stop those 3 people.
Yeah. I think this weekend will be another big test for Gannon. I think the Cardinals are totally beatable. I am not impressed with that team. I'm not a Kyler Murray fan. I'm definitely not a Cliff Kingsbury fan. The organization, its history is pretty inept. They've caught lightning in a bottle here or there, had a couple decent seasons and whatnot, but they're nothing to write home about. Totally winnable game. Same deal. I think you're going to have a large Eagle fan contingent in that stadium as well that could maybe turn things around a little bit.
There might be some stifles down there.
Oh, there you go.
It's actually no stifles. I got some Calabrese, my mother's maiden name. My mom's side of the family. There's a Calabrese contingency that lives in Arizona, and they are Eagles fans still because they're from this area.
There you go. The one concern that I do have is looking ahead because the next game is against the Cowboys, and listen. Last year, the Cowboys blew us out both times, both in national TV games, if I recall. Pretty embarrassing. I got to be honest with you. If I demand anything this season, is to reciprocate that against them. I want them beaten really bad not this week, next week when they play again on Sunday Night Football. I want them embarrassed. I don't want them to let up the Eagles. I want them to score 50-plus points and put that team out of its misery early. I really want to see that, and I hope the team understands how important it is, one, to beat the Cowboys, and B, to exact revenge on how embarrassing it was to play them last year. It really was. I mean, the second game was, an afterthought. We had already made the playoffs. We had our second, third, and fourth stringers in there, but still, have some pride. Don't get your ass beat like the way you are. So I really hope the team isn't looking ahead past the Cardinals, and I don't think they are, because you heard Hurts in his press conference saying, you're asking me all these questions. You didn't ask a damn question about the Cardinals. They're a good team and not to be taken lightly. So Hurts' head is on straight right now, and he knows what he has to do. So I don't think they're going to look past him, but there's always that possibility.
So, I mean, you segue to a very excellent question that most of the NFL would have laughed at 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, 10 weeks ago, hell, maybe even 2 or 3 weeks ago. Who would you prefer for the next 3 to 5 years, Kyler Murray or Jalen Hurts?
Hurts, without a doubt.
It's hurt, but would anybody have said that without a shadow? Like you said that like that with a snap of a finger, and I don't think it's homerish for you to say that. You see, I don't know about you. When I see Kyler Murray on the field, I watched this past weekend's game was one of the national games, the 4:00 game. You could see him bickering and arguing and making excuses on the field. They won against a bad Carolina team, but it wasn't a blowout. It was a struggle to beat Carolina on Sunday. The relationship, I always, you know me, I've talked about the intangibles of Jalen Hurts exceed the talent. And that's all that mattered to me. I always said intangibles off the field, the leadership, the work ethic can win you a Super Bowl over the talent. I'm taking Jalen Hurts because when things go wrong, when Jalen Hurts threw that pick 6 on Sunday, Mark, can I ask you a question? Did you think the game was over?
No, not at all. Not at all.
If that would have been Carson Wentz, that was your quarterback at that moment, would you have thought the game was over?
I would say that they're going to struggle for the rest of the game because of how that particular quarterback is reacting.
And Kyler Murray in that situation, if you've watched any of Kyler Murray, you would know what I'm saying. Kyler Murray in that situation would have pointed to his wide receiver and blamed him, or pointed to his coach and said that was a bad play call. I've seen Kyler Murray say at least 3 times on national TV that was a bad play call. That's not a leader. That is not a leader.
And that harkens back to what we talked about the Phillies that lack leadership. The Eagles are full of leaders. I mean, and you need your quarterback to be a leader. And I've said this last season. I've said that this season. That Hurts he played for Alabama. He played for Oklahoma. He already knew how to run a squad and be a leader that the rest of his teammates can trust into going into a battle. So he had a learning curve last year. This year he's really taken a huge step forward. And the fact, you talk about the size, he is a big dude. He is a strong guy. Have you seen some of the YouTube videos of him lifting weights and whatnot?
He could squat a house.
Yeah, so I do get nervous when he gets hit in the pocket when he's running, but
would you want to be a linebacker trying to tackle? When he ran for that touchdown over the middle, I cringed at the hit he took crossing the goal line on Sunday. But on the flip side of the equation, I cringed because I thought he was going to barrel over that linebacker. No linebacker even wants to stop Jalen Hurts running over the middle at full speed at this point.
Yeah, I trust Hurts. I think he is the right guy for this offense right now. He's got all the weapons in the world around him. And he's got some big wide receivers. And I read a Philly Voice article by Jimmy Kempski.
Guy, I like Jimmy Kempski. Jimmy Kempski, come on the show anytime you want.
Yeah. So one of the matchups he said was Hurts versus their secondary. I believe he said not one of the secondary of the Cardinals is over 6 feet tall. And you're going to be up against Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, and you can't even crack 6 feet. That's a mismatch all day long. And I think Hurts and Brown can definitely exploit that. And there could be some fireworks this weekend. I mean, they could put up a 30 spot this weekend if they get the right matchups.
I like it. The one thing I will say, and you brought up an interesting point. You said the looking ahead to Dallas. It's a key point. I think it was Jason. I don't know if it's Jason or Dylan brought it up on this week on the show. Is how this? Is it crazy? I think I almost want this team to lose at some point in the next few weeks because I want to see how they handle that adversity of losing. Like they're not going to go 17-0. We know that, but how they handle that first loss will be crucial going forward. But I'm not saying I want them to lose. I'm not saying they will lose this week, but I do want to see at some point how they'll handle that. But with somebody like Jalen Hurts, someone like Jason Kelsey or Fletcher Cox, Brandon Grant, there's literally 20 guys on this team that will step up in that locker room and say, we won't let that happen again, whatever causes that loss. So it'll be interesting to see.
No, I agree. Like I think they can rebound from a loss.
A loss is not going to snowball into 6 in a row with this organization, with the team that's in this locker room, with the coaches that are in this locker room. There's not going to be a 4 or 5 or 6 game losing streak.
We looked at the schedule and I had said that I thought they were going to lose against the Lions, and actually they almost did. The Vikings, there was a lot of people picking the Vikings over the Eagles. Eagles smashed them. Then it's Carson Wentz's. He's going to want to show up against the Eagles, and that right. They took care of them. The Jaguars, same deal. Doug Peterson's going to want to prove something. They took care of them. Now we got the Cardinals this week. Then you got the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football. Then you got the Steelers, who their quarterback situation is just god awful right now, and that team might not win 5 games this year. Then after them, you have the Texans. The Texans, who are just
it's Thursday Night Football.
Okay, it's Thursday Night Football, but
on the road,
the Texans. You have the Commanders coming in on Sunday Night Football again. Wentz might not even be the quarterback.
He may not. We still may not get to boot Carson Wentz the starter when they come back.
Here's the game to watch out for: Eagles Colts, and we're talking about quarterbacks. I don't know if Matt Ryan will be the starting quarterback by that time. And I'm going to tell you right now, the Colts, if Nick Foles happens to be the starter in that game, you've heard it here first. The Eagles have no shot in winning that game. None whatsoever. I do not believe.
It's not loud enough. I set up a sound effect that said "really" a bunch of times. But
yeah,
it doesn't sound like it's loud enough. Never mind.
So you heard it here first. November 20th against the Colts on the road. If for some reason Nick Foles is the starter or plays significant time, the Eagles have no chance of winning that game.
Yeah. Whew. I don't know, man.
I think your first loss can be against the Colts.
Nick Foles is completely washed at this point.
I'm telling you that man will find a way to win that game. I'm not doubting you, but Matt Ryan is also washed. He's terrible.
Colts will go out and sign someone off of somebody else's practice squad before starting Nick Foles in a game.
I'm telling you that the seat is getting hot in Indianapolis, and Frank will pull Ryan and put Foles in there if he means that they're going to win a game.
That's just pathetic.
So I think there's going to be a 4-game stretch here. The Colts, the Packers, the Titans, and the Giants.
I actually had them losing all 3 of those games.
Yeah, they may run into a little bit of a problem there.
But that was before the season. Now I don't think, because I don't think the Colts could beat them. I don't think the Titans could beat them. The Packers have a great defense, but the Packers offense is a train wreck right now. So I don't know if the Packers could beat us. I actually think that this week and next week, Cardinals, Dallas, the Jacksonville Jaguars, Cardinals, Dallas 3-game stretch. If I'm looking at the schedule, is the toughest 3-game stretch on this schedule right now.
No, they have after the Giants on December 11th, they got the Bears. The Bears are terrible. Then they got the Cowboys Christmas Eve, and the Cowboys could be out of it at that time. The Saints, we may get a top 3 draft pick. That's how bad the Saints are.
Woo! And then you got Jalen Hurts is your future quarterback, and you still have the Saints draft pick.
Yeah,
it was meant to draft your replacement for Jalen Hurts.
I think you have to watch out for the Giants. The Titans, the Packers, and the Colts, I think, are the teams that are really going to give them some trouble.
I don't know if you remembered, Mark. I said on the preseason prediction show, I gave 11-6 as my prediction. Then at the end of the show, I said, but here's a scenario where they go 15-2 this year. I know it's bold, it's insane. 11-6 is probably more realistic. 12-5, whatever. But there is a scenario where they can win 15 games this year. And it's not, you cannot, when you look at their schedule versus how they played so far, they can legitimately win 15 games this year.
If they win 15 games and they get a first round bye.
Are you looking at their schedule?
Yes.
All right. So when I said they could go 15-2, I said they would lose week 11 and week 16. I just have the wins, losses. Which weeks are they?
11 and 16. Wait, game 11 and 16? Wait, let me.
Week 11 and 16.
The way I'm looking at it, it doesn't tell you what week. I got to freaking count. So
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4,
Hold on,
5,
hold on.
6, 7.
Week 11 would be the Colts, I think.
No, the Packers.
Okay. So I got them losing to the Packers, and then week 16, which is the third to last game.
The Cowboys or the Saints?
I don't know. It just says week 11 and look, I just got numbers written down here. I just have 11L, 16L, and then winning everything. So I have them going.
So yeah. So week 16 in the league, yes, will be against the Cowboys, and then the Colts. Yeah, the Colts is I think
Colts
week 11. Yeah,
that's all I've got. There's a scenario where that's how it plays out.
If they get that first round bye and win 15 games and they're the number 1 team in the league all season, where's the Super Bowl at? Is it in Arizona this year?
I think it's in Arizona, dude.
Yeah,
I will let you Bills Mafia me through a table if they go 15-2 and get to the Super Bowl. God damn.
Book your Super Bowl tickets. Like I agree with you, Phil. They're looking at the rest of the league. I don't see any teams that really match up to the level the Eagles are right now. Now things could change in a few weeks.
Absolutely. It's NFL, not for long. That's what it stands for. You know,
I think the Bills and the Chiefs are teams obviously to watch out, but like within our conference, the Packers are beatable.
The Rams
are totally beatable. They got average really quick.
Gets old really quickly.
I think the 49ers are somebody to watch.
Yeah, the Cowboys maybe. There's nobody. Minnesota, we've already beaten them. I mean, who scares you? Tampa Bay. Tom Brady's got more issues.
There's too much going on in Tampa Bay right now. They don't. I don't know if Tom Brady finishes the season.
There is a chance. I said that a few weeks ago, actually, when the first rumors broke about his personal issues. All right, real quick, because we got to get to Sixers here. We're all right. This is already the longest show I've ever done. Maybe, I don't know. That could be
my fault. You can blame me.
No, that's totally bogus. I probably have done an hour and a half before. Real quick, because you won't be on Friday's show this week. You'll be on next Friday's show when we predict the Cowboys game, which makes me not have to book a guest to join us Friday. Do the Eagles win Sunday? Predictions for you. Again, I will give my predictions Friday morning. Will they win? They're 5.5-point favorites. Will they win?
I'm going to say 31-24 Philadelphia Eagles.
31-24 Philadelphia Eagles from Mark. That is not a unique score. You can't bet that as a first-time ever score. But I like it. I can see that happening.
I think they put a 30 spot up against the Cardinals.
Cardinals defense doesn't scare me at all. I
think the defense will hold them in check. I don't think the game is going to be as close as that score. Gannon, listen, he's getting things done. This week should not be any different.
We joked, Jason or Mark, that Jonathan Gannon, if he had a good season, would not be here next year. If he had a bad season, he wouldn't be here next year. Is there a scenario where this season is going so well that Jonathan Gannon and Shane Steichen both might not be here next year? Because they both might get head coaching jobs next year. That's how good both the offense and defense are clicking right now.
So Howie Roseman and Jeff Lurie need to figure that out really quick, and Absolutely. They need to decide who do they want to keep and elevate him to assistant head coach, offense or defense, and pay them more money, because I don't think the team can afford losing both coordinators.
Or start having Nick Sirianni train or take somebody else. I don't know who the running backs coach is, or the wide receivers coach, or the cornerback or linebacker coach. There was I forget who the quarterback coach is. What's his name? Brian Johnson or something like that.
Yeah, he's the one he coached Hurts in college.
Yeah, exactly. Start working with him to take over as offensive coordinator. They better start planning now, because if this season goes as we're jokingly overreaction Monday-ish on a Thursday talking, we're going to lose both Steichen and Jonathan Gannon next year.
Yeah, I would think that if they had to choose, they'll let Gannon walk. And they're going to slide Vic Fangio in there. There was a reason why he was floating around camp this year. That he's for all we know, he may be working for the Eagles as a consultant somewhere, and it just hasn't come out yet. So they're probably keeping him close to the vest, knowing that Gannon's probably going to get serious consideration, because I think it caught them a little bit by surprise on how close he was of getting a job this offseason. So, but I don't think this team can sustain losing their two coordinators in the same offseason. So they need to figure out who they want to keep and who they want to let loose. And I think they kind of made that decision with Gannon leaving, with Vic Fangio being in and around the team this past offseason. So, yeah, real good topic to bring up there, Phil. Yeah, I didn't even think of it that way.
Interesting. So we'll keep that conversation going as the season goes along. Look, we're at an hour and 15 minutes. I want to spend some time. We'll take the Eagles hat off. I already wore the Sixers hat. We'll put my brand new one at the golf outing on Monday, Corona Premier, who refuses to sponsor me. I've hit them up like a half a dozen times. But we'll put the Corona Premier hat on. Hit me up. I would love you to promote and sponsor this podcast, Corona Premier. The Sixers. I changed the screen to blue. 2-0 in the preseason. First and foremost, I have a couple of things I want to talk about. I don't want this to go more than 10 or 15 minutes, Mark. But first and foremost, Tyrese Maxey. What the hell was that?
I just knocked over a glass. No big deal.
It's spilling your laptop, I hope.
No, we're good. We're good.
All right. Good. Tyrese Maxey in 14 minutes in game 1, 15 minutes in game 2, so 29 combined minutes, has scored over 40 points on offense. Is Tyrese Maxey setting himself up? I know a lot of people are still hyped about Harden and the weight loss, and obviously Joel Embiid, perennial MVP. Is Tyrese Maxey going to become the number 2 scoring option on this team? Is Tyrese Maxey going to become an all-star this year? Is Tyrese Maxey going to prove that last year was not a fluke with how he upped his game last year?
He's going to take a huge step forward. He is going to be that second scorer. We really got a hell of a player with Maxey, and he wants to be here, and he's a super sweet guy. Very, very friendly, and so talented and so quick on the court, and has a nice jump shot, and he has a sense for the rim. I think he takes a huge step forward. And just remember,
he took a huge step forward last year too.
Yeah, just remember, like, he wouldn't have taken that step if Ben Simmons was here and none of that crap was going on. In fact, Maxey might have been included in a trade for Harden or another player. So it was a blessing in disguise for Ben to be a petulant child and sit out.
He's bricking shots in Brooklyn right now, just so you know.
Oh, dude, he was terrible the other night.
Did you see the video during warm-ups before the other night? And he took a shot in warm-ups, and he bricked it so bad it hit Kyrie Irving in the head.
I did not see that, but I did see his
ricocheted really hard off the rim and hit Kyrie. And you look at it, and Kyrie Irving kind of looks around, and Ben Simmons has this like, "Oh shit, I screwed up" kind of look on his face. Kind of funny.
Dude, it's good. That team is going to be a disaster this year.
Yeah. There's people picking to win the East. They might not even make the playoffs. It's gonna be kind of crazy to see how
you
that
got
team
3 head cases on that team between Durant, Irving, and Simmons. I think
talented head cases that all want to be the number one person, but all aren't capable of being the number one person.
Agreed. Simmons, again, like, he might not last the season in Brooklyn.
He might not play basketball in 2 years.
He'll be done by the time he's 30. There's no way that he'll be playing beyond that. And if he is, he's going to end up being like a bench or role player. He just doesn't have it in him. He don't want to play basketball. He wants to play video games and date hot women. I don't blame him for doing that.
Hold on. Oh, let's backtrack. We're talking Sixers here. But is there anything wrong with playing video games and dating hot women?
There's nothing wrong with it, but not when your primary job is to play basketball in the basketball court at a high level for a lot of money. Then it is a
lot of money.
then it is a problem. But getting back to Maxey, we're in a great spot. He is an untouchable. There's no way, shape, or form that you are going to trade that guy. I don't care what happens with Durant. I don't care what happens with any other player that's out there that might be on the market. You cannot trade that guy because Harden is a short-term solution. Maxey is the future. Maxey is the future of this team. And
it's his team 3 to 4 years from now when Joel Embiid.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
His organization, his city, his team.
Yeah. And I don't think it's wrong thinking that he's going to be the number 2 scorer. Like he could average 22, 23 points a game. As long as he's got the minutes out there to play there, and it'll take pressure off of Harden and Embiid if he's putting up those kinds of points every game.
You know, it's crazy. We talk about Jalen Hurts and how he leads his team, but see, it's more than leadership. It's getting and understanding. I brought up at the very beginning of the show how Philadelphia is a blue collar city. We appreciate hard work and effort and leadership and fire. And you have that with Jalen Hurts, and you have it with Joel Embiid, but you also got it with Tyrese Maxey. He gets Philadelphia. When you think of somebody that would thrive, he's not Allen Iverson, but he's kind of got that Allen Iverson mentality where the little guy on the court, because let's be honest, I mean, Tyrese Maxey at 6'2" in today's NBA is the smallest guy on the court most nights.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got that underdog mentality, leadership ability, skill to back it up, and the personality to back it up. Tyrese Maxey's meant to be in Philadelphia, just like Joel Embiid, just like Jalen Hurts. And I think that's something special. And that's why I think that's, to bring the whole story, the whole episode full circle, what the disconnect with the Phillies is, there isn't that Maxey or Jalen Hurts to connect with.
Agreed. And you want to talk about a team that connects with their fans? I think like the Sixers are probably the best at it right now. Mm-hmm. Between Embiid, Harden, even the other players, like a guy. Listen, how much I like Matisse Thybulle. I mean, he's a pretty big fan favorite. A lot of the fans like him.
He was 0 for 3 on Wednesday night from deep, just so you know. He's 1 of 7, 3 in 2 games, just so you know.
And listen, you might be right. He might be some trade bait. He might be the guy that does go at the trade deadline to get that extra piece.
Unless we're perfect and 52 and 10 at that point.
Yeah, unless he go ahead and if he lights it up and he really does take a step forward with some of the long range shooting, like if he can get that down, if he can knock a couple threes down a game and play stellar defense, then I think you do have to question whether or not do you really trade him for something else, because he's given you exactly what you need. But getting back to Maxey, he's a difference maker. He's going to have a fantastic season. I think he'll make everybody better on the court. He'll take pressure off of Harden now what's he going to play at 33 this year? Embiid, same deal. And I see this being a 60-win team this year.
Wow.
I don't see why they can't win 60 this year. I mean, with all the other players that they've added, the PJ Tuckers and whatnot, I see 60 wins. I see a number 1 seed in the conference. I don't see why they shouldn't be.
And they small detail that we've talked about on the show a few times is the fact that we thought Matisse would start over PJ Tucker. Tonight, they rolled out what they project as their starting lineup, and PJ Tucker is starting over Matisse Thybulle. Is that a mistake by Doc Rivers? Which, by the way, Doc Rivers has been reinstated for the start of the season. Because I just can't keep going saying Glenn Rivers. I keep screwing it up way too often. So he's earned it by default back to being called Doc. Is it the right decision? Because I kind of feel like PJ Tucker being protected on the bench is the right move to start the season.
Yeah, I think they got to tread lightly with his minutes. I mean, the guy's 38?
You don't want another George Niang situation where by game 60 he's burned out from last season.
Yeah, I would say you got to really be very strategic on when you're using him as not to burn him out. You need him at the end of the season. So you got to figure out a way to limit his minutes or balance his minutes. I don't even say limit, balance his minutes all season so he is fresh for when they need him the most. My dog just kind of snuck in there. How are you, buddy? Just kind of snuck right in. Yeah, you gotta. I mean, listen. They believe he's a big piece of the puzzle. I'm okay with him, but like I am concerned about his age and how much tread is left on the tire there. But I mean, we'll see. I do think, like I said, with how the team is constructed, how it's going to look. The players, the main, three-headed monster out of fourth with Tobias, 60 wins, number one seed. I can't see why they can't be there.
I mean, I could see them doing that. I could see them also being the fourth seed. I just think that the East is so deep at the top end between the Bucks, the Heat, the Celtics still, even with their coaching issues. There's so many really good teams there in the East. But I could totally see what you're saying happening. But let's wrap this show up here with this thing. The Sixers are perennial favorites to make it to Eastern Conference, if not the championship round. The Eagles are undefeated through 4 weeks and could go 14, 15 wins if they keep at this rate. But the Phillies are in the playoffs for the first time in 11 years. They have the opportunity this weekend to overtake. If the Phillies win this series, will the conversation sway and will they overtake this city for the next couple of weeks?
Probably. They probably will.
If the Eagles win against the Cardinals and are 5-0, the Sixers come out, win their first game or so, whenever that first game is, but the Phillies are in the second round of the playoffs. Will the conversation on Train the AM get to be Phillies dominant for a little bit here at rarely in an October time frame?
I don't think you have a choice at that point. And I think the town is all in on the Phillies because now anything can really happen.
I still remember when they made that first year in 2007, and just how it felt. I kind of feel the same way right now. I knew they were underdogs going into that, but I kind of feel that same feeling right now. That I'm just excited and happy that on October, what's today's date? All right, so October 7th, we're still talking baseball. It's great. It's great to not be talking about who's going to get fired, who's going to get traded, who's going to get signed. It's great to talk that we actually have a game.
It is. It really is, and it's. I think it's going to be a good series this weekend. Like I said, I just don't think they have enough ammunition to get over the hump. But if they do, for a short time, this becomes all in for baseball town. It's Red October. Everybody and their mother is going to be a Phillies fan, and they're going to be tuning in, and that is going to be the first discussion on any of those other sports radio channels. We've already been talking Phillies at DSM, but
channels that you've been listening to over Trending in the AM. Mark, I'm disappointed in you, my friend.
So not going to lie. I've been listening to the Mike Missinelli podcast.
What's wrong with you?
Wait, listen. So I was listening to it today. Their production values are like 7 steps below DSM Media. We put out a much better podcast, better sound, better visuals. It sounded like they were recording through a tin can. So we got a leg up on the Mike Missinelli show right now.
That is right. Because they suck. He blocked me so long ago. And I loved him. I respected him. I looked up to him. And he blocked me a long time ago. So he's dead to me. He's on the DTM list, just so you know. The fact that you listened to him over me, it breaks my heart, Mark.
Listen, when I'm working from home, I stream our show. The DSM show. I have a big speaker in here while I'm doing my reporting.
Yeah, your boss probably shouldn't hear you say that,
No, it's all right. Listen, in my job interview, like about 15 minutes worth of my job interview was discussing my involvement in podcasting and DSM media. So it did help me get the job.
Well, there you go. That's kind of like me after I worked on cruise ships. Every job interview I worked on or went to after cruise ships, they're like, I don't care that you got a college degree. Tell me about working on a cruise ship. I'm like, dude, it was just a joke job for like 18 months, and that's all they cared about. Look, we got to wrap this up. We're pushing an hour and a half here.
Yeah, we got 30 seconds to an hour and a half.
I'm just gonna be paused and quiet here. All right, everybody. Again, thank you for tuning in. This has been a great episode. Make sure you hit the like button, the subscribe button. The road to 700 continues. If you help us get there, I'd greatly appreciate it. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your dog walker. Listen to DSM Media. Listen to Trading the AM right here on DSM Media every morning, 8:30 a.m. I'd greatly appreciate it. It'd mean a lot to us. I appreciate Mark coming on tonight, this morning. This is a pre-recorded episode, so if your comments didn't get up on the screen, I apologize. Tune in Friday morning. We will be back live 8:15 instead of 8:30 because Friday morning deserves an extra 15 minutes. Shane Half, he's been on before from the Painted Lines, and from now, because he's part of the Bleeding Green Network, will be joining us to help us break down Eagles Cardinals. We'll be talking Phillies Cardinals everything. It's going to be all Cardinals on Friday. So make sure you tune in at 8:30 a.m. There, I stalled. We're past the hour and a half mark, Mark. You happy?
Everybody, I am, but my wife is not. She's asking me to wrap it up.
I know. Me too. I still got to edit and upload this here. Or Mark Moscatelli. Make sure you shoot him a follow at Mark_Wit_A_C. I am Phil Stoffel at Beard and Knowledge. Everybody have a great night, and we'll see you Friday morning. Great. Have a great day, and we'll see you Friday morning.
Go Phils, go Birds.
And Philadelphia